Okay, I should be live now. Let's see if I can tell everybody where it is. So we need the video links. I'm not good at figuring that out yet, but I'm working on it. And they're a little tricky to navigate, so let's see if I can figure out where these things are. Yeah, what I want to do is actually just go there. Yeah, I don't want messages. Trying to figure out how to tell everybody where these videos are, but I haven't yet worked that part out. Yeah, it's nice to know that Squirrel is live now. How do I tell people where that is? How do I share? Okay, I've got Facebook now. Trying to work out my YouTube link as well. This is part of the experimentation. Thanks for your patience. I'm figuring out how this actually works, and I'm not good at it yet. See if I can do it over here. Should be live to the world. That's the theory. But I can't prove that I am yet. No, not going to let me do it. Well, just do it on Facebook. Unless I wish I could figure it out from StreamYard. Hi, Tim. Oh, great. Well, somebody's seeing me. That's good news. You figured it out by yourself. Tim, it would help me actually if you could, whatever you're doing that's telling me the comments, let me know what you're doing. I think you're making YouTube comments, which is great. And can you possibly let me know what the URL is? What browser address are you going to? Because, hurrah! Thank you, Tim. I really appreciate that. Yeah, if you could just let me know what, I think you're making comments in YouTube, and then what URL are you using? Because I'm having trouble figuring out how to find that. I want to tweet it out so people can find it. So you saw the live link, which is good. Could you tell me what that live link is? Could you paste it in? Are you able to do that? Because I don't know how to figure out what the link is. Then I can tell people, and then I can answer questions. Sorry to trouble you. Just working out the technical details here. There must be some way here in StreamYard to tell what the links are, but I'm looking all over and not finding it. And I know there's a delay. Yeah, that makes sense because it has to get from here to their servers and then out to YouTube and back again. Yeah, I think StreamYard is delayed. That seems about right. maybe I can, no, I can just show that on the screen. Oh, well, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. How do I hide? Okay, sorry. I didn't know I could show things on the screen. I'm finding out how this works. So Tim, feel free to ask your question. If you can throw in the link, that would help me. If you can't, don't worry about it. I'll keep poking around on YouTube and see if I can figure out where I can see my own link, you would think. I can see, oh, there it is. Squirrel's Office Hour 2 has 2 views. That's exciting. Do I get to see it? There it is. It's live, it says. I can see how many people are seeing it. Can I actually see it? That would help. Yeah, you've put in the link. I don't think it's sharing it with me. Maybe that it's not allowing it to come through, which is very frustrating. Ah, video link. There it is. Hurrah! Man, that was buried. So it takes forever to find. But I think, yes, there we go. And I'm hearing myself with a little bit of a delay. Good news. All right, so now I can put that in Twitter. I thought I had this all sorted. I'm going to have to start this, 5-10 minutes beforehand if it's this much of a hassle. But that's what I was hoping to do, is just to find out how this stuff works and be helpful. Cool. All right, now I can focus. Tim, I'm all yours. For anybody who's joining who doesn't know, I'm Squirrel. I'm a consulting CTO. I'm ready to help folks. I'm going to be here for about half an hour. Have a due diligence to prepare for this afternoon, so I'm going to pop off and do that. But I'm available for questions, comments, discussion, argument, anything else. We'll go until I run out of time or we run out of questions. And I think my friend Tim has at least something to ask. So I'm ready to see that when he's got it. Okay, he's going to ask me 2 questions. Sounds fantastic. And we've got somebody else viewing. Of course, I don't know who that is, but please feel free to use YouTube or Facebook comments. I should be able to see them. Part of this is testing that works. Feel free to weigh in with your own questions, comments, and so on. And we'll get some interesting questions going here. I'm in my shed. My wife is having a nice rest in the house, which is behind me. You may hear the dog barking. That's her guide dog, Star. And you may hear the sheep, who live about 100 meters that way. And they are somewhat noisy. They've had their lambs at least, so I think they're probably going to be a bit more quiet. Waiting for questions from Tim or anybody else who wants to fire some at me. Here we go. Tim asks, A. All right, A. So we got a B coming. What are the best practices today for managing an emerging and complex data model stroke domain in a large and growing scale-up? And I'm going to try showing it. Look at that. As if I knew what I was doing. I'm playing with the technology. I hope that question is helpful. So, I could even just leave it up there while I'm answering. So I like the practice I learned in about 2004 from a speech by a guy named Scott Ambler. And he talked about evolving your database. And I remember when I was trying to wrap my head around Agile development, I would listen to this speech over and over again. We didn't have YouTube and office hours and stuff like that. So I found a recording somewhere and I would listen to it a lot. And I found that very helpful. And I haven't seen that there's that much that's changed. So Ambler at that time was talking a lot about refactoring your database. So you could do the same kinds of things to your database that we did to code, that we were all trying to figure out how this stuff would work. So I do remember something that doesn't work very well. So I'll say what not to do, and then I'll make some concrete suggestions based on Ambler's work. One thing I remember very clearly is somebody had, one of my clients had their data model literally on a wall, and it took up so much of the wall, much longer than the shed. And it had a full entity relationship diagram, and it was up on the wall, and you could walk up and, circle things and put arrows and whatever else you felt like. And that was not a great communication mechanism. That didn't give you a lot of information. So Ambler's argument was you should have tests for your database in the same way that you have tests for your code. And that's a very nice way of making sure. Welcome, Michael. Nice to see you. Glad to see another question. I'll come to that, to yours and Tim's other one in a moment. Still answering the one on the screen. So Ambler's argument was that you should have tests for your database, and that would do the same thing that tests do for your code. And one of my favorite things to talk about when I discuss this is tests for code, or in this case, databases, have three purposes. People think it's just for defense. It's to look out for bad things that are going to happen, errors, problems, you've broken something. But they also serve as design drivers. So tests in any environment force you to expose what your application does, to describe carefully what it's for, to make sure that it has defined interfaces that you can poke at. And if your tests look ugly and horrible and terrible, probably means that whatever you're testing is ugly and horrible and terrible. So it helps you to improve the design. And then they also provide documentation, which is one of the things that I think my friends with the giant wall ERD were trying to create. So the tests should provide all three of those: documentation, defense, and design. That would be my favorite way to actually verify that my database, and perhaps multiple databases, because in this kind of environment that you're describing, I suspect you probably have several data sources. I'd want to document carefully what their interfaces were. So I don't have to have just one giant thing and I try to figure out that this bit way over here is linked to that bit way over there, and so on, and try to match it all up. But I have, for example, a user database, a user data store of some variety, and it has defined interfaces that can tell me about users. That's what I'd be trying to go to. Now, I don't have enough information about your particular situation, but in general, trying to decompose and put tests in place so there are good interfaces is a good practice for anything. And as far as I remember, in the times when I was designing such things and using Ambler's ideas, that applies just as much to data models as it does to code. So probably have more follow-on questions from that. Very happy to take them, but I'm going to move on to other things. I see Tim already has a follow-up, which is great. So I'm going to switch to Michael's question. Hi, Michael. Nice to see you. How do you suggest approaching shared infrastructure, e.g. a common data platform stroke warehouse? Hey, you and Tim have been hanging out together. E.g. dedicated team versus sharing responsibility across cross-functional teams. Boy, this is a tough one. So the anti-pattern, right, is you get the operations team, and they're often some other building, and nobody ever talks to them because they're grumpy anyway. And you kind of throw code over the wall to them and say, here you go. Another anti-pattern that's common, I'm thinking about this for the due diligence I'm doing later today, is doing the same thing with your data science team. So I'm not quite sure what your data platform stroke warehouse is. Is that an extract, transform, load that's putting data into Redshift, something like that? Is that a something that's run by an infrastructure team, by maybe a dedicated data science operations, data science and data engineers? Not sure what exactly it is. But in any of those cases, the mistake is put them in another building and make sure that you never talk to them except by handing code over and saying, here, go do this. That's particularly damaging when you have data scientists who are trying to do analysis, and they'll go off and do their wonderful things in R and all kinds of their fancy tools that they use in order to model and analyze data, and they'll produce an amazing machine learning neural network that does stupendous things, and they hand it over back to you, and you go, how do I operationalize this? How do I put this live? So that's definitely the anti-pattern. So what you don't want to do is that. And so the argument of the DevOps movement, the reason it's called DevOps, is the argument is that you should have cross-functional teams that manage that. The challenge, of course, is when you start to scale, that can be difficult because you need to coordinate the different cross-functional teams. It's interesting that it has a similar kind of ideal response. Certainly, I won't claim that this works in all circumstances, but the ideal position is very similar to the answer to Tim's question. Decompose into smaller pieces which are independent and give strong interfaces between them. Amazon is famous for forcing everyone to do this back in whatever it was, 2002. And it led to AWS and other good things and world dominance as far as I can see. So the standard answer to this one is create a DevOps team. By the way, I'll take a quick detour. There's a terrible thing that's happened, which is people start to talk about a DevOps or a DevOps team or the people who do DevOps. That's a DevOps person. I want to hire a DevOps. It's like saying I want to hire an Agile. I don't know what it means. So when I say DevOps, I mean the original meaning, as Patrick Dubois intended it when he coined the term, which is you get those people in that other building, the operations people and the developers, and you mush them together and you say, you guys are responsible for running this system. The coordination challenge is high, and there's a lot of literature in the DevOps world on how you do that. But that's the brief answer. Again, I'm happy to go into more on each of these. All right, so let's see, where should I go? Let's try to go to the follow-ups first. Wow, this is great. I can show the questions. That works really well. Welcome to another person who's joined us. Feel free to throw in questions. I'm doing my best to answer everything. I'm going to be here for probably another 15, 20 minutes. Get through as many of these as I can. So Tim asks a follow-up. How do you define ownership for the data model in a large microservice architecture with lots of squads collaborating? Do you really need a microservices architecture? I was a big fan. I really advocated microservices. By the way, sorry that my neighbor has decided to mow. I don't think I can do very much about that background noise. I hope it's not too disturbing. Hello, person who says, hi, Mr. Squirrel. I was a big fan of microservices early, but I don't think I really understood quite what the organizational complexity would be and how much challenge it would add of exactly this type. When you tried to get many different groups all trying to share, for example, a data model and share information in a tightly coupled way. And that's the thing you've really got to avoid. And I don't have tons of direct experience with this, so I'm telling you more anecdotally and from my experience in working on similar systems, but not exactly this situation. We didn't have microservices when I was doing this actively. But I'd be trying to decompose again. I'd be trying to get to limited groups that have clear interfaces between them, kind of the Amazon style model, where you're separating what they're responsible for. And they are not trying to share very much of a data model. You want them sharing interfaces to the degree they can. So I say, this is how you can get a user from me, and somebody else who's doing, I don't know, a reporting engine can say, I need the list of users so I can report on each one, and I'm going to go to the user service and get that. But I don't need to worry about what their data model is. I don't need to worry about exactly what storage technology they're using. I don't have to worry about what their constraints are and so on. I'm going to trust them to give me the right information. That's the only way I know how to do that. If you've got that level of collaboration between the squads, is try to reduce it and formalize it, get it as structured as possible so you define the interfaces. Happy to say more about that. All right, I don't want to miss other questions, so let's see. Oh, good. The noise is not a problem. I'm pleased to hear that. Sorry, I don't control my neighbors. I don't have very many neighbors, mostly sheep. So I'm going to come to Tim's other question, because I got back to that. I don't want to miss that. How should a new leader, VP of engineering level, work to establish themselves in a large and growing organization? Okay, great. So I have lots of thoughts about this one. In fact, I teach training courses with my co-author, Jeffrey Frederick, on how to be a new manager and what sorts of things you should work on. A relevant topic here is, are you new to being the VP of engineer level person? I'm assuming this is for you, Tim. I'm going to answer it as if it were, but if it's not, you can apply it to whoever you're asking for. Assuming that if you are someone who has been a leader at this level before, your job is easier. You kind of know what sorts of things to work with. I'm assuming that by new leader, you also mean new to the position. So one of the biggest things that's important, I can't remember who he's quoting when he says this. My co-author Jeffrey often says, you could probably just Google this to find the source. A promotion or a change to a leadership role is not just a promotion. It's not just a new desk and a new business card and so on, and maybe a different salary. It's actually a change of career. So you're doing a new and different kind of thing, especially when you reach this level where it's VP, C at the front, C, TO, C, SO, C, IO, one of those things. You're functioning very, very differently. And you have exactly the kind of questions you were asking. So very healthy that you're asking that. That's the sort of thing you should be asking. But a very common mistake, so I'm telling you what not to do to start, the first thing not to do is to drop back to your previous role, because your intuition will be, oh yeah, that team's in trouble. I know what to do. I'll go to their stand-up and I'll tell them what to do and I'll give them all the direction, and that's not your job anymore. In the same way as you wouldn't then, in a previous position where you're moving up to, say, a team lead, you wouldn't have gone and written the code for somebody who was making a mistake. You'd help them. And it's just as painful, if not more, that you have to pull yourself back from doing the work yourself. And there's a whole structured method for doing this, for making sure you stay out of the detail but have enough information. And you can read about it in Agile Conversations, a new book for me and Jeffrey. Find that on douglassquirrel.com and agileconversations.com and other places. It's in chapter 7 on accountability. Or you can read the original source, because we picked it up from a clever guy named Stephen Bungay, and that's a book called Art of Action. And if you search around, or if you ask me on LinkedIn or Twitter or any place else, I'll find it for you. There's a nice 10-page summary if you don't want to read the whole thing. But briefly, and I say briefly like that because the technique is called briefing and back briefing. What you do is you give the person a goal, freedoms. You're welcome to do this using this technology or that technology, use this team or that team, and constraints. Now make sure that when you're doing it, you make sure everything is tested, or you verify that we conform to this standard or something else like that. That lets you balance the assignment to them with what is then going to come back from them, the back briefing that says how they're going to accomplish it. Lots more about that. Could answer a whole lot more questions on that, or talk more in a future office hour about it if that's interesting. So that would be the kind of management style I would strongly urge you to take on. But actually, there's an even more important thing to do, which has nothing to do with your team. And that's the strangest thing. So you're VP of engineering, you have an engineering team. Your view is that you need to be helping them to get lots of stuff done, help them deliver. You've got some accountability to people above you to get things accomplished. Your job is not actually to do that, which seems very strange. Your job is to help them, and the briefing, back briefing, accountability kind of stuff can help you with that. Your main responsibility is actually to understand the rest of the business and to be part of a larger organization, larger team of some variety. And it might be called an executive team, it might be called senior technical leadership, something like that, but there will be some group of peers, people who don't report to you. And that is the thing I would be doing on day one, is understanding who are all those folks. What kind of collaboration am I going to need to have with them? How can I build relationships with them? Where are their challenges? Where has the relationship been poor before? Maybe alluding to the earlier question, you've had an interaction with those people in the other building, those operations people, you're not getting on with them. I would go to the other building, say, hey, would you like to visit us in our building? Would you like to come together? Maybe you're doing this all virtually, depending on your state of openness in wherever you are. But what I'd be looking for is a focus for you on building those relationships. That's the thing that actually makes the most difference and is going to help you be as productive as possible at VP of engineering level. So those are the things that come to my mind first. I'm sure there's lots more. And of course, you're also welcome just to get in touch with me separately, right? So we don't have to do this publicly. And when I have my office hour, you're welcome to drop me an email, ask some of these questions, and get some more personalized advice and ideas. But I'm glad that you're asking them here too. I'm glad that is working. Let's see. So what questions haven't I got to? Let's see. So I did Michael's question about infrastructure. We did data follow up on data model. Michael says, would bounded context help so that teams contexts have a degree of independence? Yes, certainly that's the kind of thing I had in mind. Bounded context is, I hope I'm remembering right, domain-driven design, which is certainly a very helpful concept. I have never been in a situation where I've used that directly, but I've wanted to, and I've seen people use it very, very usefully. I believe the book is called Domain-Driven Design. I'm not absolutely sure of that, but that would be a place to investigate. That's one particular approach to the kind of general divide and conquer idea that I was referring to, but Michael's absolutely right. Let's see, Tim has a follow-up. Fantastic. Any pointers for where to learn more? And he has another one, which is where do I sign up for a management course? Okay, excellent. One of the things I was going to do, I got a rush of work this week, so I didn't get a chance to do it, is to set up some courses and training that Jeffrey and I will be doing. So stay tuned. If you join the mailing list at conversationaltransformation.com or just agileconversations.com, both of those go to the same place. If you join that, you'll certainly hear about our training courses when we get them actually set up. One of the things I have to do is figure out how to take credit cards because I can't currently do that. So going to do all that stuff. That's some fun programming for me, but should be scheduled and up within the next month or so. If you're in a bigger hurry, again, just get in touch with me direct, ds@douglassquirrel.com. Just go to douglassquirrel.com. As long as you can remember my name, you can find me. So go ahead and get in touch there, and we can either talk about some individual coaching or how the management course might run. If you're talking about the one that we do already, that might or might not be suitable because it's for people who are totally new to management, and I'm guessing if you're headed for VP of Engineering, you've done some management. But it's an O'Reilly course. It's offered through their Safari program. I think there's one coming up in August, but I don't quite remember. And if you look on the O'Reilly Safari platform, you will find a bunch of very interesting courses. And Jeffrey and I do one called Having Difficult Conversations, which helped lead to the Agile Conversations book, and Your First 30 Days as a Manager. So it's aimed at people who've never managed before. You'd be very, very welcome to join that if that would be interesting. Okay, and Tim says, great answer, thanks. I'm pleased to give a great answer that you find helpful. That sounds fantastic. Okay, so any more questions that anybody would like to ask? I think I might bring it to a close relatively soon. Glad that we kind of technically figured out how this works. I'll certainly promote more heavily and get more folks on, but I also like having an intimate group to get some interested in questions from. And of course, I can publish this later, and people can get benefit from it that way too. So any more questions? I'll give just a minute or so for anyone to fire more queries my way, and then probably close up the office hour and try this again in future with a bit more promotion, and hopefully without the difficulty of not being able to figure out where the video is. I'll try not to have that problem. Let's see, any burning thoughts on my mind? There's some conferences coming up that could be quite interesting. One is called IT Pro Live. We've just been doing the set up for that, Jeffrey and I, so we'll be speaking there toward the end of the month. And another called DevOps Enterprise Summit. Officially, it's London, but all of these are virtual, of course, these days. So you can find us at both of those sometime soon if you're interested in hearing more about these topics. Okay, so I think I'm going to close up the stream here and say thank you to Tim and Michael for excellent questions. And you'll get I'll post the video as I have been doing and promote that a bit. Not exactly sure how I'm going to structure these going forward, but if you keep watching Twitter and LinkedIn, you should see them. My hope is to do them once a week if there's sustained interest and people come along with good questions. I can do this as long as everybody else can, and it's lots of fun and energizing. Tim says, suggest using Eventbrite so people can put this on their calendar. A very helpful suggestion. I think I can do that for free. Yeah, so I don't want to charge people for this. This is free. That's the whole point of it. Yeah, I will investigate doing that. Keep an eye on that as well, but I'll certainly announce on Twitter and LinkedIn. Super. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Have a great weekend.